Ex-prisoners, what is the saddest thing you've ever seen in prison? When I was young, juvie, I was 15 or 16 at the time. Most of us there were older teens. 11-year-old kid was brought in for throwing rocks at one of his teacher's homes. Had an older fat guard who worked there. These were generally civilian guards, given we were juveniles. Well, this guy, named Travis, started being weird with the kid. At first, kid was like any other 11-year-old, happy-go-lucky. Travis got really handsy with him. At meal times he was like actively rubbing on him. We all saw it, was a lockdown facility, so we weren't let out of our cells much either, but we all witnessed it. Guy was like rubbing his back, touching his leg. Within a few days, kid's whole attitude changed. We all knew Travis was molesting him, even though we couldn't prove it. Fuck. And that poor kid wasn't the only victim that predator, I bet. Probably took that job so that he could find victims. Uck. Yeah, he would do other weird shit, like we had a shower room, one shower, so showered alone. A guard would bring us out, we had 5 minutes or so to shower, get back to our cells. Most guards would shut the door or leave it cracked and let us do our thing. He would leave it all the way open and be watching. Noticed he wouldn't try shit with any of us. Probably because bigger, older, and stronger could put up a good fight, but this little kid couldn't. Fuck, you should report that dude somewhere, if you can remember his name. There might be other little kids being abused by him still. I just remember his first name, I don't think much I can do on it now. Also, I wasn't the victim and cannot prove effectively that he was doing other things, even though we all at the time knew he was. He would take kid out of his cell as well, don't know where to. Usually for a while. No clocks, so couldn't say how long either. Honestly, something that haunts me to this day. Not a ex-inmate, but a ex-correctional officer. Had an inmate who got some bad news in the form of his mother passing right as it turned Christmas Day. It was midnight and we wouldn't be serving chow for a good long a while, and the day rooms were all clear of inmates, so it was a tad odd to have to escort a guy down to the lieutenant's office. I was dismissed as soon as we arrived and he was sent back alone. This guy was a troublemaker, always acting disrespectful to both us and the other inmates. When he returned, I figured I was gonna have hell putting him back in. Instead, he calmly walked back to his cell, never said a word and didn't even look around. We checked on him multiple times and nothing happened on my shift. Found out when I came back in the next day that he had hung himself in his cell with a towel while his cellie was at recreation time and the officers were busy in another wing. I remember the worst part was getting the call to escort him down, cause when they called it had just turned from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day, so for Christmas he got another night in prison and he lost his mother. Was in with someone, let's call him Carlos, was up for review serving a dime and he got a new roomie who tried to clap his cheeks. Carlos had no choice but to stick him and he added another 5 years to his term when he was likely gonna be free that year. From what we understand, he did tell the guards and review board that he was defending himself from being raped, but not sure what the outcome was other than he added more time. Edit, update, wow, didn't realize how many likes this got, thank you all. I just asked my boy who stayed in the same block with Carlos about how his release date, and Carlos did in fact get out on time in 2017. The new roommate had a reputation and many other district attorneys in his paperwork about other grapes in prison which came into play for his review. Edit, update, I was serving 3 to 5 for conspiracy to fraud and aggravated assault 3. Ended up serving 2 years in Arizona for good behavior and participation. I didn't do it, lawyer fucked me, Shawshank Redemption. I knew a guy who was never in trouble in his life. He was working in the automotive industry in Michigan and lost his job. He fell behind with child support payments and ended up doing time in jail. His very first night his 2 cellmates got into an argument because one of them couldn't find his bear claw snack. They finally stopped arguing and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, he was woken up by the guy beating the guy he accused of theft. He literally beat the guy to death. Apparently he had gotten a hold of some kind of pole or stick. The entire cell was just completely covered in blood. They end up finding out that the guy he accused of stealing it didn't steal it after all. I'll never forget the fear and look in guy's eyes when he told me what happened. Wait, so did the child support guy steal it? Or was it just lost? If I remember right, the guy who committed the murder only bought one when he initially thought he bought 2. I went to county for about a week in the middle of nowhere, Kansas on a drug charge. I was 19 years old, scared shitless. It was a room with about 4 communal picnic benches and 2 rooms on either side with about 6 bunks in them. I noticed one was full, and the other had just one guy in there. So not understanding the situation at all, I went over to the empty bunks and a guy grabbed my shoulder and just gave me a hard look that said no, but without saying a word. Then I noticed the other prisoners were camped out in corners on their mattress. I did the same. Found out quickly that the solo guy was in for crimes against a child. I have never heard such as an ass whooping more that night. I just covered my ears and stared at the wall. How did I get here? And then sobbing and pleading. I was bonded out the next day. Edit, a couple people have asked. This was in 1992, my spring break of college freshman year. I was driving to visit a friend of mine in Wichita. I never had to serve time, first offense, good lawyer, college kid, etc. I got extremely lucky. Exactly what happened to my ex: we were busted for weed, he screwed up one of his screens during probation and ended up in county, but for months until a court date, no bond. It was horrible for a number of reasons, but for him, being a laid-back Lebowski type of guy, listening to the chamo being beaten in the middle of the night was disturbing on a number of levels. I knew a guy who was very kind and in prison for just a parole violation because he stole something. He was a homeless guy, he was a bit goofy and had schizophrenia or something, but a really nice guy. Anyway, he got sent to segregation for some reason and the guards ended up beating him to death there. I believe the guards who did it are in prison themselves now. Can't believe that happened. Rest in peace, Larry. Edit, here's the article. That's really sad. Prosecutors said the guards forced Irvin from his cell in May of 2018. Irvin was restrained and handcuffed and posed no threat when the guards assaulted him. Banta was accused of striking the most serious blows to Irvin, including jumping in the air and landing on him with both knees. Irvin suffered multiple broken ribs and severe internal injuries. He died in June of 2018. Yeah, there's even more to the story. They cremated his body very quickly because supposedly they couldn't find the family. Trying to hide the evidence. Larry loved to do cartwheels in the yard, I can still see him doing it. My brother had 3 gold teeth. They were ripped out in the first few months of being in prison. He said he lost them in a fight, but a guard told us that he was probably held down and had them forcefully pulled out, judging by the damage to his gums. This has got to be a South African prison. Ding ding ding. What gave it away, the violence, or the username? I actually didn't see your username, but I've heard of this exact same thing happening in KwaZulu-Natal prisons. Hanging out one day in the law library. All of a sudden, some kid who was fresh came in minding his own business and just started reading something. One of my boys who was also in there, mind you, I'd been locked up for over a year at this point with this dude, he was chill and in there for coke dealing, got up, walked over to the younger kid, and beat the living fuck out of him. Like, not just knocked him out. I'm saying literally beat the life out of him. Blood flying everywhere, the kid was on the ground and dude just kept smashing his face in, it was like literally caved in. I got up and just stepped back and watched so I wouldn't get jumped by the correctional officers when they came in. They literally dragged this lifeless kid away and cuffed the dude I knew. I saw him once more before I got out, and I asked him what the fuck happened that day. All he said was, I felt like fucking somebody up. Needless to say, I've had serious trust issues since then, and since being locked up in general. Seeing that literal 18-year-old get beat to death in front of me was pretty fucked. My ex-boyfriend was in jail for almost 3 years. I used to visit him every Saturday. There were lots of families there, in the visitation room. Imagine a sort of warehouse with little tables and chairs. There was this woman that would sometimes visit her husband and give him hand jobs under the table. Sometimes she would sit on his lap and ride him for a while. Right next to her 2 little kids. I will never forget those kids' faces, staring at the wall, trying to ignore what their parents were doing. The guards would mostly ignore it because the guy was apparently a big shot drug dealer and had lots of influence. It was absolutely disgusting and humiliating for those kids. My ex would scold me for staring at them with disgust. He didn't want to get in trouble with that guy. So messed up. Not as messed up as your horror stories, but it broke my heart to see kids in those situations. Just all the people with severe mental illness that shouldn't be there. In an immigration jail, I saw a Korean die from AIDS-related issues as the jail wouldn't supply him with any medication. In the same jail, a friend ended up with multiple cancer tumors caused by lack of treatment for prostate cancer. The jail refused to bring him to the hospital for over 2 years. By the time he got the diagnosis for the prostate cancer, it had already spread to his liver, lungs, colon and bones. Terminal. He died about 2 months after I got released. The family members should have sued the prison, even if they weren't on good terms. Manila. 0 chances of a foreigner winning a lawsuit. Someone got convicted while the victim said it wasn't him. Got 10 years. Killed himself a year later. What the actual fuck did I just read? You don't want to know how that played out. I read his dossier multiple times. It was utterly insane why this guy was in there. Maybe you can elaborate some more? Well, supposedly he tried to kill the victim while driving by shooting at him. Victim said he and him had some animosity but was sure he didn't shoot at him. Victim also claimed he drove a Nissan, while my friend drives an old Mercedes. Nothing added up. I have no idea why he got convicted. I was once stood up for a visit, my friend booked it and didn't show, so I had to wait in the holding cells whilst everyone went on their visits. After an hour, a guy from my area came back off, his visit looking visibly shaken and upset. He went on to tell me that his girlfriend and mother to his kids had just told him she had terminal cancer. Sadly, she died not long after. This was like 12 years ago. To make matters worse, the guy's face popped up on my Facebook the other week as he was murdered. Made me think of them kids, possibly adults now, parentless. Obligatory, not a prisoner, but I'm a correctional officer and most things don't bother me. They can't because I have to come back every day. But one thing, we had this inmate, we'll call him Johnny. Johnny had some kind of mental disability where he never matured from 8 years old. He had the brain of an 8-year-old and the body of a 15-year-old despite him being in his mid-20s. There's so many things that were messed up about his being here. Firstly, never should have been arrested. His bail was $50 and his parents refused to pay it, instead taking a vacation to St. Martin. Every Thursday, visitation day for his cell block, he came up to me and said, "Officer, my parents are here, can I go see them?" I checked with the officers in the lobby and, no, they weren't here. He just thought that maybe if he showed up then they would too. Christmas Eve, he asked me if Santa was going to still give him presents if he was in jail. Is that fucked up enough? Yeah? It gets worse. So much worse. Administration decided to house him on our special needs unit. Makes sense, however, our special needs unit is mostly comprised of pedophiles. We put a mentally handicapped man who looks 15 and acts 8 on a unit full of pedophiles. Take a guess what happened. Figured it out? Take a guess how many times it continued to happen, after being reported. I'm done, this is pissing me off just thinking about it. Geez. Poor guy. What was he in for? So the first time, he bit the lady that works at the group home he was in. The second time he hit another, but we think he did it the second time to go back to jail because he liked the staff better. The judge only gave him $50 bail because he know that if he was released that he'd be living in the streets because his parents won't let him back in. Damn. Is he still alive today? As far as I know, yes. This was only a year or two ago. 17-year-old kid was in my block. His name was Israel. He had been kicked out of his grandma's house a few months prior for doing drugs, so he was living on the streets. He got picked up for package theft. He was only in for 30 days, but he was enjoying every minute of it. Because he was young and a generally good dude, people looked out for him. I taught him how to play spades. At the end of the 30 days, he didn't want to get out. He didn't want to go back to life on the street with no food. He was planning on doing something to get himself back in there, but I tried convincing him that's not where he wanted to be. I told him he needed to go talk to his grandma, quit doing drugs, and try to get a job to help her pay her bills and keep him out of trouble so he could get his own place sometime soon. He heard me, but I doubt he was listening. If I had to guess, he probably got himself locked up again, but I sure hope not. As a kid, I went to juvie for accidentally setting some woods on fire, bonfire out of control, situation, and my cellmate was only a few years older than me. He was a super nice, laid-back guy. We got along great, and even sorta became friends while there. I was just a kid, so I didn't really ask any questions about different colors of jumpsuits and people's reasons for being there. The day I got out, I found out he was in there for murder. Apparently he got really tired of his stepdad physically abusing him and he killed him. I never really knew all of the details, but I can tell you that when talking to him, he seemed like a good kid at heart. Had things and people that he cared about, things he wanted to do, interests, etc. The guards obviously must have known, but they were always super nice to him, noticeably so, even more so than other inmates. I always wondered what happened to him. Edit. Wow. Lol. I appreciate the karma, didn't expect it. No, I don't know his name, and have not tried to find him because of that. This took place in Florida, during severe drought, and we were already fighting a bunch of fires intentionally set by arsonists. They definitely took it pretty serious. 2 kids that I thought were my friends pinned the whole thing on me. I absolutely learned my lesson lol. He was very cool, polite, and got along with everybody. I couldn't have imagined it being enjoyable for him, but I only knew him that brief period. Guy told me after he was arrested that all he could think about were his dogs. Said police didn't care when he told them that his dogs were home alone, and that he really hopes someone he knows or a neighbor will check on them, but he couldn't get a hold of anyone. Broke my heart, poor puppies. I had a friend of mine go to prison for, stupidly, growing weed in Kentucky on national park land. I love the dude, but not his brightest moment. He had 4 or 5 dogs in his house when he got busted. Didn't have any of his friends' numbers memorized, didn't have his cell on him, his family was all dead, small town cops didn't give a shit about his dogs. When I heard the news, he was on TV, I immediately tried calling the states, the locals, the nearest shelter, everywhere really, even his ex-wife, and given that I was 4 hours away and without reliable transport, I couldn't go myself. Rural area, so those dogs wouldn't have been heard by a neighbor. They'd been locked inside for days at that point, along with 2 cats and 4 aquariums of fish. The next day, which was I think 5 days after his arrest, my buddy called me in a panic about his animals. He'd finally convinced someone at the jail to look up my work phone. No way I could post his bail, no way I could get up to his house, I felt so bad for him. I made the rounds again by calling every agency I could think of in his area, and no one wanted to help. I even tried to look up random neighbors on his same road to see if they could help. The good news is that someone broke into his house while he was gone. They stole all his expensive electronics and whatnot, but the bashed-in door let his animals out. They went mildly feral, fed themselves by natural instinct, drank water from the creek. I mean, the fish died, but the cats and dogs lived. And when my buddy finally got out on bond, he went home to find his animals just loafing around the backyard, happy to see him. A little skinnier maybe, but healthy. He called me when he got home to tell me the good news. Didn't care that he'd been robbed, glossed over the whole felony charges, just happy his dogs and cats were okay.